Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Duke Football Coverage Podcast, brought to you as always by Bull City Coordinators. Check us out on our website, bullcitycoordinators.com. Send us an email, bullcitycoordinators@gmail.com. Our DMs on Twitter are open. We are at Duke FB Coverage, and you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. We have a first on the podcast history today. Our next guest is coming back for his third interview. That is our third-time recurring guest. I'm very excited about it. He played football at Duke from 2012 to 2015 and was part of the golden era of Duke football that brought us to 4 bowl games, an ACC Coastal Championship, and a Pinstripe Bowl victory to finish it off in glorious fashion. Welcome back, Carlos Wray. How are you doing, sir?
Good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. And since you were last on the podcast, and we do need to talk about celebrated the Pinstripe Bowl, so don't let me forget to talk about that with you. But since last on the podcast, you have gotten yourself back into football. Tell the audience what you've been doing since they last heard from you.
I was fortunate enough to become a defensive line coach at Crest High School here in Shelby, North Carolina, which is actually the rival high school to the high school I attended, which makes it ironic, but it's a blessing. It's a blessing, definitely, to have this opportunity to be around the field again.
Well, you and I have stayed in touch since we have started doing the podcast and since I've been covering Duke football. And I just want to say I have noticed a difference in you since you got back into the game. You seem a little more amped up, a little more excited. Can you just talk about that a little bit? What's been good for you? What's been good for Crest, and kind of what you're looking forward to this season?
I think the biggest thing is the learning curve. I think that the players have learned a lot, not just from me, but from some of the other coaches with playing background experience. You know, having that background means something to the kids, but it also makes them want to learn more from you or said person. We have another guy. His name is Trey Harbison. He played running back for the Cleveland Browns. And he went to Crest High School. He came to help out, and the kids fell in love with him. The running backs, they're asking him, "Hey, can you be our coach now?" You know, it's things like that. The kids just fuel our passion. I mean, you watch them do things correctly, or you see them do things that they didn't think they could do, and you look on their faces. I mean, that's why I do it. I run a training group out as well in the off season. I have about 26 kids that I train in the off season, all free of charge. Just passion for the game. That's all.
What for you has been the biggest change from being a player to being a coach?
That I can't do it. That I can't physically get on the field and tackle somebody. I have to teach you what to do in order to make the play. So putting people in position is a lot different than putting yourself in position. When you know what's going to happen and you have your mind made up on it, versus you got to give somebody advice and hope that they listen. It's tough. It's tough.
Well, as a position coach, can you tell us a little bit about what you do for your unit, the defensive line, when it comes to recruiting and trying to get them visits and to colleges?
Well, every week I try to make sure that somebody sees somebody. And I literally say it to the players like that. Somebody needs to see somebody. And what I mean by that is, if you're not on Twitter, obviously today's social media, what social media has brought to the game, if you're not on Twitter, if you're not on Instagram, if you're not on Facebook, you could be hindering your recruitment. And so a lot of our guys they're kind of shy. They don't do a lot of pictures. You got guys who have Instagram pages with 0 posts. But my main thing is for them to get their faces out there so they can be seen. And then when they turn on the tape, they can put a face and a name with the body. So I try to put out as much content as I can as far as my players go. And anytime they put their film up, I make sure that their film is out. I make sure that the coach knows what positions they do play, what positions they can play, their potential, how high the ceiling is, everything.
And one thing that you mentioned, I want to come back to it, is the NFL experience that you have and that your running back coach has. Does that help you with the players? Do they buy into you maybe a little bit more because you have that experience as an athlete?
I don't know if it's as much the NFL as it is college. Because the NFL is what they watch, but college is where they want to go. You know what I mean? And so I think when they hear the NFL thing attached to anything, obviously it's going to be, you're going to get the big eyes, the crazy looking stares. But when you go back to college, that's when you get the most reps. That's when you practice things to try to make them perfect. That's when you perfecting your craft constantly. In the NFL, that's kind of a choice. And so I don't want people to get that misconstrued thinking that, oh, he made it to the NFL. Oh, well, he knows it all. I don't know it all, but I do know a good bit from what I have personally done and what I've personally been taught.
Let's switch gears a little bit. We'll talk about the team specifically last season. How did the team do overall? And those of us who follow you on Twitter probably know the answer to this one, but then how did the defensive line do last year? I think they did pretty well.
So the season, I'll go back. The season before last, I didn't coach. The D-line only had 7 sacks. And so we went from 7 sacks to 20 regular season sacks plus 8 in the playoffs. My goal at the beginning of the season, and I told my guys this, my goal is to try and get each and every one of you into season, whether it's college, whether it's prep school, whether it's JUCO, I don't care. You need to go to school. And that literally was my goal. And every one of my guys has an option to go to college now. So that was my biggest thing. As far as the team goes, we made it to the 4th round playoffs last year. Didn't go all the way right there at the end. And I mean, that was that. But we had a amazing season as a football team. You couldn't ask for more from these kids on Fridays because they're amped up for it. This is their Sundays. This is their Saturdays. So those kids are different. They're different.
Tell us what we should expect from your guys this year, the D-line specifically, but also the team as a whole. What are you guys looking to do?
I think we're rebranding ourselves. I'm not going to say rebuilding because we're not in a position where we have to rebuild, but we're rebranding ourselves, and we're kind of out with the old, in with the new. We have a new head coach, so we're gonna amp things up. I think he's bringing a lot to the table. The kids are excited about him. We as a staff are excited about him. So I think he's going to bring a lot to the team. So I think right now, this summer is going to be a rebranding of Crest football in the situation where they need it. So
now we're going to talk about 2 different parts of Duke football, and we're also going to talk about something else. One thing that we didn't get to when we did the bowl game discussion, probably because I had bought a big unsweet tea from Ankles right before we started that interview when we were hitting the 2-hour mark and I needed a break. But one thing I forgot to ask you about was you had indicated after the loss in the Sun Bowl that you to Dr. White, who was the athletic director at the time, and you said, we are not going to have this happen next year. We're going to win a bowl game. And
I believe he may be the only one that can confirm that. We walked off the field in the Sun Bowl, and he was standing outside our locker room, shaking our hands, each guy's hand as we go in, just out of respect. And that's something that I liked about to Dr. White. He was really involved with us as a football team. But I made it a note to myself to tell him that you won't know this feeling next year. We had already been to 2 prior bowl games and came out in losing fashion. That was the 3rd. I had enough. There was no point in getting to the bowl games to lose them. Getting to the bowl game used to be the goal. Now we've surpassed that tremendously. We got to win one. That was a lot of our mindset going into that next season. So I took it upon myself to tell Dr. White right after the game that you won't know this feeling next year. You won't know what it's like to be on the losing side of the bowl game, things like that. And he shook my hand and he told me thank you. And I walked in the locker room, and almost a year later, we go to the Pinstripe Bowl, and oh my goodness. I'll let you pick up though. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Tell us, you said you celebrated with him.
Mm-hmm.
That was a point for you. So just tell us about that.
So after that game, obviously everybody's in the locker room and we're irate. We're going up in that thing. You know what I mean? I mean, it's a celebration of celebrations. And K White's right there in the middle of all of us. There's music playing, people dancing, passing around the trophy, taking pictures. I mean, it was one of the best parties I'd ever been to. So, K White is he's a lot different when he's around the players and when he can kind of be loose versus when he's around guys that he has to do his job around. You know what I mean? Totally different guy though. He earned a lot of respect from us over the years.
How important is the athletic director to the football program?
He or she is a key component. Them and the head coach are essentially partners, you know, and the athletic director has to have trust in the head coach and vice versa. So I feel like having a good athletic director will determine what your teams will do, whether it be football, basketball, baseball, softball, whatever the case may be. I feel like if you have a good athletic director, then those things will show through your teams.
Well, let's switch gears just a little bit and get into a couple of things that we've had going on recently in our lives. Both of us have had family crises, and you're busy. You've got a lot going on. You got a young kid. I've got 2 kids. I've got a job as an attorney, and you've got a job trying to coach kids, get them in college and move them around. And I do want to say that I think within a couple of minutes maybe of me posting on the Duke FB coverage account what had been going on, I'd been off Twitter for a week, you texted me, I mean, real quick. And I just wanted to tell you, I really appreciated you reaching out and checking in with us. That meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to my family. And it was great to know that we had support of people that like you, that, you know, I mean, you and I know each other through some interviews, and we know each other through Twitter. We never met in person. We talked a fair amount, but that meant a lot to us to have that communication, and I appreciate that.
Gang, baby.
One thing that I want to talk about is with you, what is it like trying to manage everything you've got going on with your work, with your job, your career, and then you've got a family emergency thrown on top of it?
It's one of those things I always tell people I don't stop. So what I mean by that is literally whatever life throws at me, I just take it on. Whether it's adversity, whether it's something good, an opportunity, I just take it on. You can't stop. If you stop and start dwelling or start getting down on yourself, and it's hard, it's not easy, but if you stop, then you'll sit in it. I've literally sat in my own emotions before, and it's not the place that I recommend anyone go. So it's just literally making sure my daughter's good. When I know she's good, she has everything she needs. Okay, let's go to work. Okay, let's come home from work. Okay, my girl's good. Okay, let's go to the doctor's appointment. We just keep going. It's a constant fight uphill. But it's also one of those things where you appreciate everything a little bit more. You appreciate having the opportunity to be around the game of football, just so you're able to free yourself just for a second, right quick. Things like when I'm at work and I'm as busy as I can be, I try to keep my mind on work and try to stay focused on the task at hand, because I know when I leave work, it's family. And that's literally how I live my life. I just don't stop.
But it's funny that you talk about that, how you can use football as an escape. And I do want to talk to you a little bit about this. When I was at the hospital, my wife would stay there and sleep there overnight. There was only room for one of us. I would go home late in the evening, but I was trying to work while at the hospital, but I couldn't do it because, as you and I have talked about, I'm a medical practice attorney. So I've got the ability to converse with the doctors in their lingo to some extent, obviously not to the degree that they can.
Right.
And my wife is relying on me in many instances to understand and explain the medicine to her. Now, you and I talked about this. If you don't have somebody with you who can do that, or somebody in your family with that experience, that has got to be a much more difficult process.
Yeah, because they tend to want to fly right past it. I mean, they'll use their language, to which 98.99% of people who go in there don't understand it. They'll use their language and leave you behind this glass wall to guess. And I feel like that is, for them to be medical professionals, I feel like that's terrible. I feel like a line of communication has to be built, because my significant other's here and you're doing your job. So let's build a line of communication so that we're all on the same page here. Now, obviously, it's not going to be that way the full time, because there's going to be things that I feel and things that you feel. But let's find some middle ground, I feel like. And I feel like a lot of medical professionals should take that into consideration. We should definitely find a middle ground when communicating with parents or spouses and things like that, because if you don't and you leave them to guess, then you're going to get the reaction that you don't want, because they're already guessing, which means their mind is making itself up on what's going on.
Exactly. And the hardest part is not knowing, right? You're sitting there like with my daughter as her condition was evolving. And I apologize to my parents for this, because, my mind was so out of it and we didn't know what was going to happen when we took her back on Sunday. Right. I didn't call my folks to say, hey, by the way, she's back in the hospital. I talked to them on Monday when she was going back for other surgery. And, the only thing you can do in that situation is try to find a way to be distracted. I think I played about 1,000 games of solitaire with an actual deck of cards to just keep my mind off of, what's going on. But the communication part is interesting, because I find myself doing this as a lawyer. You kind of get on autopilot. You're so used to your own link, so used to your own terms. You're so used to, everything, what it means. And I often find myself telling my clients, well, hold up. Let me pump the brakes. Let me start back over again, because I know all this and I know what it means, because I've handled so many cases. You have not. And I think, to your
here's another thing. I don't mean to cut you off, but let's say you're a lawyer being a lawyer and a doctor's being a doctor. Your language and their language isn't going to add up until there's malpractice, right? A lot of time, in a lot of cases, right?
Correct.
So, but at the same time, that doctor's going to look at you like, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. That doctor's going to look at you when you start using your language, and they're going to say, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. Or they're going to be intimidated by a litigation, not knowing that you're not threatening them. But it's like I said, there's a language barrier that we have to all become accustomed to when talking to other people who are not in our profession. Because again, if me and you are talking back and forth and we start talking about litigation, you're gonna lose me a little. You're gonna lose me. You know what I mean? I didn't practice law, so I don't know the terms, and I know some of the cases, but not the major ones that I would need to know. Things like that. You kind of leave people behind the wall. So I just feel like medical professionals, especially, they need to kind of cut that. And I have notes to a seminar that I'm trying to hold for language, literally for medical language, how to dumb it down.
Well, and to your point too, when you say you're a lawyer in a hospital setting, the conversation changes. I mean,
absolutely.
It gets different. They get a little, I think, self-protective. And especially with the work I do, they feel threatened, but I'm actually there. And I told the doctors this. I said, look, I'm not trying to get in your lane and I'm not trying to drive your car. I just need to know what's going on. And your point, you've got guys that you played football with that you reach out to and say, what are the questions I need to ask, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not everybody has.
So a lot of people who I went to school with, some of them did take on the pre-med. They started doing the pre-med thing. But a lot of them, I know a lot of guys that I didn't play football with who went to Duke were on the holistic path. And I've learned a lot from those guys, just on what to recognize, what to look for in some diagnosis. And these are the same things that the doctors are telling me. You know what I mean? So it's just about being able to converse about the subject at hand. And you don't have to use your language. I don't have to use a certain language. Let's just talk with humans. Tell me what you're seeing. Tell me what the possibilities are, and tell me, are we trending up? Are we trending down? What's the expectation?
And we were fortunate for the appendectomy and then the bowel obstruction. We had a very good communicator who was the surgeon for both of those, the same one. And she could talk, and she showed us the CT scan and walked us through what the CT scan showed for the bowel obstruction. But again, my wife and I have had a lot of these discussions. We're friends with one of the head radiologists at the hospital that my daughter was at. And when we were out of town when all this happened, right, we're 3.5 hours away.
Oh, wow.
And I called, never go out of town. That's what we've learned. But we called, the time before we went out of town, we came back, that sinkhole opened up, right?
Jesus.
Right. So it was finally done 4 months later. They got it fixed and everything. But I called him up and I said, hey, are you on today? I need somebody to look at this CT scan she's about to undergo for her appendicitis, which was going to be appendicitis. Can you look at it? He said, no, but I know who's there. I'll get him to look at it. And the whole time I was thinking about where I grew up, we did not have those kind of connections, right?
Exactly.
And now I do, and it makes me more appreciative of that, and it also makes me want to do more to help people who don't have that resource.
Absolutely. Right? I mean, it sucks going to, I call it being generic. It sucks going to the hospital and they give you this generic rundown and generic symptoms, and it's something far worse than what it actually is. Or they give you these guesses, these hypotheses, of what they think is wrong without even taking a look at the child or the patient. So, I mean, it's ridiculous sometimes because some of it's common sense. You didn't even look at my child and you're trying to tell me what's wrong with my child. That doesn't add up. Yeah, something there doesn't add up. So that's when I start asking questions.
Right. And I think the key is, and we had a conversation with a resident that I think will help her understand, not everybody. I mean, we live we could roll down the hill to the hospital, right? And my wife works remotely and has for a long time. I can go remote for the most part. I have to, reschedule some things, but not everybody has that ability, right?
Absolutely.
Nobody can have 2 people in the hospital every day. And you have to, as a practitioner, understand that and try to make accommodations and allowances for that to help them through what they're going through.
Well, I think a lot of the times when people are going through, whether it's CNA school or, or they're starting a residency or they're a nurse or a doctor, I think a lot of the times they get caught up in being a nurse, doctor, or a CNA and not a human. You know what I mean? I mean, because in college, they don't teach you that. They don't teach you to be human. They teach you to do your job. You know what I mean? Or they teach you how to learn so that you're able to acquire skills. But they don't teach you how to realistically think human-wise on the terms of what you're speaking on. And that's where I feel like there's a disconnect. That's like me as a football coach. I have to talk to parents all the time. Imagine how many single mothers I talk to that don't even know the game of football. They're only doing this because this is what their son loves. I have to break it down in a way that they can understand it and compare it to whatever else they're doing in life. If I tell her son's a running back and he had over 1,000 yards, and she goes, "Is that good?" I mean, that's an indicator. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's great. He just, or I can say, well, that puts him here with all the other running backs in the state. Here's where he's wanting to go. This is his goal. These are things, breaking it down to the parent about their kid and what they're doing. Not just so it's, oh, my son plays football and that's it. You know what I mean? It's much more than that.
Right. And, and to your point about trying to get him into college, you and I have talked about this. A lot of people who've come on have talked about this. Most of the guys who have come on here who have made it to the NFL have had short careers there. As an athlete, the risk of injury is high and the shelf life is short, and they got to be ready with that backup plan.
Yeah.
But how's your family?
Yes. Everything's going great. So we did speak briefly about it. I'll speak on it. So my significant other was diagnosed with chronic kidney disease, and at the top of 2022, literally, I think like 3 days into the new year, she got a call, and they were telling me that she needed to get to the hospital. That her kidneys weren't functioning at even 15% at the time, and it literally turned our world upside down. I mean, she was in the hospital for almost 2 weeks. I was a single parent for 2 weeks. So I did everything that I could do to be sure she had everything she needed while she was over there and make sure that my daughter was accommodated. In those 2 weeks, we learned a lot. And it's ironic because right before the new year, we were speaking on a lifestyle change, and I guess God heard us because He kind of forced that on us. But it's been one for the better. It's definitely been one that it has paid itself forward to us, myself included. I've lost probably about 10 pounds since we've been on this new diet, and you can tell it's just trash weight. That's just one thing. Another thing is being able to learn more about this disease, being able to get educated on what's going on, knowing what we can do, what we can't do, and just living vicariously, man. Just trying to enjoy this thing. Because again, this came out of nowhere. I mean, this wasn't anything that was already kind of lingering and got worse. Nah, it just popped up out of nowhere. And of course, to begin with, everything was kind of hard, but it's gotten easier since. Things have kind of slowed down for us, so it's gotten better. But yeah, that it came out of nowhere. 3 days into 2022, we got that phone call.
Yeah, I remember messaging with you around that time. It was stressful, and now. Have you guys gotten into a good routine that you feel kind of workable now?
I feel like we have, especially with everything that's going on as far as spring football going. We got spring ball coming up. Of course, our daughter, that's a nonstop, that's an everyday thing. And she is literally living life as the child she should be. I'm not putting pressure on her to, chill out and not be a kid. Don't play right now. Hey, sit down. No, we're just letting her live and be happy and enjoy everything that she can enjoy. If she can touch something, touch it. If you can taste it, taste it. That's, that's aspect of my daughter. But as far as me and my significant other goes, it's been a lot to learn, and it was an adjustment, but it wasn't an uncomfortable one. It wasn't an uncomfortable adjustment at all. So.
Well, I'm glad things are going well. I know that was a rough time for you and your family. So things are moving.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. And yeah, and I think that I want to thank you for just hearing me out, man. There's many times, and people don't know this obviously, but we talk almost every week, if not every other week. A lot of people don't know that, but I appreciate you for at least just hearing me out sometimes. So sometimes I just need somebody to talk to right quick, and you pick up the phone or text back right away every time. So the same things you gave to me, I'm going to give to you.
Well, hey, it's my pleasure, man. It's my pleasure. That's what I'm an attorney. If I can't listen to people, I got bigger problems I got to figure out. Right. So it's interesting. One thing that I don't think they really prepare you for in law school, you talked about communication, is most of my day is problem solving. and
Yeah.
you got to communicate with people. I got a client I got to call a little bit later today who's going through a lot, and I obviously can't get into all that right now. It's nothing criminal, so don't worry about that. But because I have represented some people who've been charged with some serious crimes, and that's a harder problem to solve. But when I represent a lot of people who deal with loss, and when they with loss, you deal with it in many different ways, and you focus on things that a lot of people would say, why are you focusing on that? But that's the one thing that you can control. And so learning how to communicate and listen to people and be there for people is something that if you're considering going to law school, Lee Rodeo, I'm sure you're listening, buddy. You're in the thick of it right now. Start developing that skill right now. And Joe Ajibi, you too. I think either you're done or about to be. That's something you gotta be real good at. So, you want to talk Duke football?
Let's do it.
Okay. Before we get into that, one thing I did want to ask you about, when your career as a Duke football player ended, I haven't asked, I don't think really anybody this. That spring that would come up, you're normally playing football, you're out in the pads, hitting with the guys. What do you do when your career is over, but you got one more semester left at school?
Finish. You gotta finish. You have to. You don't get an opportunity, one, especially at Duke, but you don't get the opportunity to go to college from a lot of places that a lot of people are from. I mean, there's a lot of people that came to Duke and was like, yeah, I left behind, Mo, Larry, and Curly, I left them behind and they didn't get this opportunity. I did. So if you get the opportunity, finish it. Just finish it. Don't start something like going to Duke and getting a Duke education and tank out right at the end. And if you do leave early, come back, finish. One semester is not going to kill you. Just finish. It's worth it.
All right. Well, since you were last on, we saw a coaching change. What are you looking to see from the football team this season? What are you looking to see?
Well, before I answer that, I'm going to make a little announcement, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
DukeGang is no longer. It is BLEEDBLUE now. And so I just want all of the gang members, and I say that with emphasis, to understand that we're still strong. We're still here, and we ain't going nowhere. I just want that to be prevalent because, and obviously, with the new head coach, there's going to be a new regime. That's understood, but we know who built that place back up. It's the Section 8s, it's the Third Lives, it's the Duke Gang. And only Duke Gang members will know what Section 8 and Third Life New Era is. They're the only ones that would know what that is. But everybody knows that Duke Gang, we revamped what Duke football is. Ross Cockrell said it best. We came to Duke when it wasn't cool to come to Duke. So now I'm hoping that they'll take those seeds that we planted and the roots that are still in the ground. I hope they'll start watering it. I pray to God they start watering it. Because we left a great foundation. And from what I feel like, I just hope they don't try to dismantle that foundation.
Well, I was going to wait to get into this, but so we'll just go ahead and say it now. I do not like the bleed blue. Okay. I think it's too generic. I mean, Michigan's go blue. What was it? Kentucky used bleed blue. Any school with blue in it could use blue. I love grind, though. I love seeing that. I think they should get rid of the bleed blue and maybe combine Duke Gang and grind and make it Duke Grind. Because when you have a new coach come in, you do stuff different.
There you go.
Right. I'm just saying Section 17 does the grind stickers. Those look great. They're giving out grind shirts today at the spring game. I don't know when this is going to post because it can take me a while to edit it, but I do not like bleed blue. It's too bland. It's too generic.
Well, when you hear bleed blue, you think of Kentucky basketball. And for me, we didn't fight with Duke basketball. Like, we were cool with those guys, but we were competing. We were on TV literally at 12 o'clock on Saturday when Alabama's playing, Florida's playing. Oh, is that Duke? We had time slots during primetime games. And so I don't want it to become a thing where now we just sound like the next school. Or, oh, well, Duke football, yeah, but basketball is, because there was a point in time when I was at Duke where we went to a coastal division, or we won a coastal championship. 2 years later, the basketball team won a national championship. That is the type of atmosphere that was at Duke. It was a winning culture all the way around. You know? And that's when the lacrosse team. Let's think about them. The lacrosse team while I was there, Brandon Fowler, he's a professional lacrosse player now. Miles, he's a professional lacrosse player now. Joe Giles Harris played lacrosse. We had to go steal him to make sure he played linebacker for us. So let's be honest. We built a winning culture at Duke, not just football at Duke, period. And I'm hoping that, because I know, Coach K's leaving and we got a new football coach. We're going to have a new basketball coach. There's a lot of change going on at Duke. I'm hoping it's going in the right direction.
You mentioned Joe Giles Harris. His brother, I think, was a first-round draft pick in the Professional Lacrosse League. So whatever they drink water up there, man, that family, they figured it out.
Exactly. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Joe Giles Harris, I think his brother came and played football for a year or two, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, geez. We had guys, man. And Emil Jefferson, Jaleel Okafor, Seth Curry, Austin Rivers, all those guys, man, we were winners all the way around. Football, basketball, lacrosse, baseball was winning. It was ridiculous. It was a great time to be a Blue Devil. But it was also a great time to be a DukeGang member. So I agree with you. I hope they can combine the two.
Yeah. And the grind is good, because that's what you have to have no matter what you do for a living. You have to have that grind mindset, and specifically at a school like Duke. And I want to ask you a little bit about that. You were part of a unit that took the team from not being that great to getting to the highs of the program's history, right? Certainly modern history. I'd like you to speak a little bit to the mindset that the current crop of players are going to need to have to start turning things around and get the ship righted.
Well, they have to lose the optimism in themselves. And what I mean by that is you can't be optimistic going into a game. Well, are we going to win, or we might, or you have to know. It's the same thing that I said 2 years ago. We have to know that when we get here, we got a shot. You have to give yourself a shot to win the game. That's number one, because it starts right here. Number two, your leadership has to be in line, from your head coach to your quarterback to your Mike linebacker or whoever it is, safety, whatever the case may be. The leaders have to be aligned. And number three, we all got to be on the same page. We can't have guys coming to the sideline saying, I thought this was this, or, oh, well, what I saw was, no, that's why we watch film. That's why we practice. That's why we're out here doing this. That's why I tell people it was literally we say Duke gang, and it was more of Duke family. And what it was, I could go to Ross Cockrell and ask him something on a blitz. Mind you, he's never played defensive line. He could tell me what I was supposed to do. That's how accountable he was of me. Well, listen, if you think of it like this is how it really goes. Teaching me a better way to learn my position. This guy plays 20 yards from me. That's accountability. And I feel like you got to have those things in order to build a successful program. The proof's in the pudding. We went from 6-6 to 10 wins to 9 wins to 9 wins. I mean, it's there.
Yeah.
So there's a form. There's no magic formula, but there is a formula. I mean, I think we can speak to the Nick Sabans of the world who has that formula down pat. So what Dabo Sweeney as well, even though he had a down season last year, they have the formula down pat.
They won 10 games and they had a down season, which is
Yeah.
and that was a good coaching job.
Mm-hmm. But that's unheard. That's unheard of. 10 wins and we had a down season. That's unheard of, right? We were almost killed to have 10 wins at Duke.
Well, I think part of it, and tell me if I'm wrong, is at some point you just have to get sick of losing and get sick of mediocrity and just say, I'm not put up with this anymore. And I've got a relatively new staff member at work, and I told her all the time that you either come into work every day, because she's just out of college. She went to Virginia Tech. We'll forgive her that mistake. But I tell her, you either come in every day to get better or you just go home. There's no reason for you to be here.
Right. The goal is to improve. And I don't mean to cut you off, but I had a conversation with a kid that I'm very, very high on. He's going to play defensive end for me this year, and he's going to be a senior. And I told him, I said, I asked him, do you understand the position you're in? And he looked me right in my face and said, nope. And I told him, you're in a position to not change your life, but to change the lives of the guys around you. And he looked at me like, how? I said, because when that college come and looks at you and they say, yeah, we're going to offer that kid, they see 7 other kids with potential. So that's literally reach one, teach one. And I feel like relaying that to Duke, I feel like I'm going to speak on it. I'm a former player. I'm alumni. I've seen it all with them. I don't care who the head coach is now. I'm going to speak on it. Elko has to align his leaders. And it can't be off personal preference. And it can't be off of, I like this kid or I don't like this kid. He's coached football long enough. I don't even have to say that. But I'm going to reiterate it. He has to align his leaders, because at Duke, those leaders are going to be leaders on the football field, in the classroom. They're going to make sure everybody's going to class. They are going to be the ones at the front of the runs. They're going to be the ones that's first to the training table, last to leave the building. Those are the guys that you have to find that now, because he's in a particular position. He's got a half room full of transfers who've never stepped foot on a campus like this, an elitist campus. And you got guys who've been here who pretty much feel like they've been through the ringer, who may be a little tired of this crap. So you got to gel that together. And as a head coach, that's probably the hardest job to do.
Well, and he's got a hard job because you could tell there were a lot of people who were tired of it, because the transfer portal has not been kind to us this year.
It has not. It has not at all. It has not at all.
And I think it's going to be hard, even if everything goes the way that you're talking about. It's going to be hard because there's a depth issue, I think, from the outside looking at it.
Yeah, but I mean, also too, any head coach that's new to an opportunity like this, they got to get a couple classes under him. We do have to give him that, as from a fan aspect. He does have to get some classes under him, some recruiting classes in there, some of his guys, and to kind of see what the makeup of it will be. Now, he comes out next year, he wins 5 games with the guys he's got now, he'll get an applaud. He'll get a huge standing ovation. Because you worked with, like you said, lack of depth. You work with guys who this is their first year playing college football, and they're not freshmen. And then you're working with guys who haven't. You're working with guys who've never played Power 5 ball, because the ACC is way different than Austin Prey or any other small school. It's different. When you go against those guys from Miami, when you got Notre Dame on the schedule, and you got Florida State on the schedule, it's different. It's not a situation of, oh, well, we'll be okay. No, these guys will run through you and take your soul. So that's to gel all that together. It's going to be a big task, but I think it's going to show us the type of coach he is.
And I'm rooting for him. I think you got to be, as fans, we have to be patient, because not this coming season is going to have its own challenges, but next season you got Clemson, you got Notre Dame. I mean, it's not going to be an easy 2 years. Be patient and find that player. And you can speak a little bit about this. You had guys who had a little bit of crazy in them when they were on the field.
I was one of them. I was one of them. I've been viewed as crazy all around when it comes to football, but sometimes you got to kind of lose your mind a little bit with that stuff.
Well, and I got to give a shout out to my son here in his recent lacrosse game. They had a kid who was on their team last year, went to a different school. And so they were playing that school that the kid was at. And that kid, I don't remember if he slashed my son or whatever, but my son jumped right up and was like, "You want to go? You want to go?" And that's out of character. Yeah. But when you get him on the lacrosse field, he gets a little bit of that. And his coaches were saying after, they're like, "Mac, you were trying to scrap with that kid. Way to go, man. Way to go." You know?
People don't understand that sports are emotional. They are emotional. I'll tell you a story. We played last season. We played my rival high school at Shelby. We played at Shelby. The high school I went to, blood, sweat, and tears, left everything on the field, everything. And we were warming up, man. I got about halfway across the field and I just broke down, man. I just broke down. And players are warming up. They're right in front of me. And I just broke down. But one thing I told my D-line before I sent them out, I told them to look into my eyes with tears coming out of my eyes. I said, "This is real passion for this game. This is real, raw emotion for this game. And I need y'all to understand it's coming from a place. I'm not mad. I'm not sad. I'm happy. I'm excited. But that's what this is." And I think people, they always tell us men, like, well, you can't cry. Men aren't supposed to cry. But, man, football gets me going every time, man. I can be standing at practice and I'll tear up right quick, just being blessed to be able to be back on the field. It's just that emotional for me. And I feel like it's like that for a lot of people. Like you said, your son's about to scrap. That's out of character for him, but he's so passionate. And he's probably about to maul this kid. But it's the passion that exceeds itself, man. It does. It's like no other. It's an adrenaline rush. It's a high that can't be explained. I mean, I've made plays in stadiums full of people. Look at them. Everybody's cheering, going crazy. I can't hear a thing. I can't hear anything. I mean, it's special, man. It's special.
Well, I want to tell you a funny story about myself, because listening to you talk about kind of how you had a little bit of that crazy in you. I can't remember when it was. Maybe it was 2 years ago, right after I went to my new firm. And every time a lawyer leaves a firm, almost always, it's not. When I left my old firm, it wasn't a great departure because it's emotional, right? It's kind of like a business divorce, and there's a lot of personal layers to it, like any divorce. And all that stuff worked itself out over time, and we all get along now. But back then I was really motivated by the way the exit went to show what I could do, right? Because they wanted me to stay, but I wanted to go do something else. And for long, complicated reasons that there's no reason to get into, just the way the departure went didn't sit well with me, because I was choosing to leave. And anyway, but that just happens. Sometimes it gets a little too personal and it doesn't work out, but we all worked all that out. It's fine. But this case came into a friend of mine who's a defense attorney. And my friend said, I'm defending this guy in his car accident case. He says he had the green light. I believe him. His lawyer dropped him because he didn't think he could prove, that the guy had the green light. And so I don't know but he had bad injuries and I think he's got a good case. And I said, that's interesting. Who's the lawyer for the other driver that's suing your client? And she told me who it was. And it was someone from my old firm that I had some beef with at the time. So I said, okay. Oh, wow. I said, I'll take that case. I'll take the case.
Of course you did.
Right. Well, we tried it. And we got a verdict in favor of my client and my friend's client. And it went, I should not tell this. This is so sad. It went so well. I asked for, I think, $300,000 from the jury. And we were concerned about whether we would win or not, because there was kind of a difference in opinion of who had the light, and every witness was testifying a little bit differently. But then when I was in trial and I heard the whole thing, I said to myself, I think we're going to win this thing, right? But so I asked the jury for $300,000. They came back with $400,000. And so that was like, there wasn't enough insurance coverage. There was a limited amount of coverage, so it didn't. We weren't able to collect all that. But when you talk about having a little bit of crazy in you, that was okay. I'm motivated. I'm gonna make a statement here, and you've got to have that mentality in whatever career you do. Obviously, you want to express it in a healthy way, but you've got to have a little bit of that mentality with you.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. You got to have killer instinct. That's what I call it. You got to be able to go from smiling to very brass very quickly, especially in today's time, man, because people got an opinion about everything now, just so it can be heard. But one thing I'll say is, and this just may speak to you with leaving your old firm and joining your new one, or you're actually starting your new one. You started it, right?
I joined up with 3 other guys who were already practicing, but yeah.
Okay. But nobody's gonna see the dream the way you see it, because it's yours. Nobody's gonna see it through the lens you see it through, and nobody's gonna understand it to the extent that you got. Like me, I already know in my mind I'm gonna be a head coach. I'm gonna be a successful head coach. I'm gonna be a winning championship head coach. But nobody's gonna see it the way that I see it, and that's fine. I don't expect them to. I don't expect them to believe me when I say it. And that's fine. But when I do it, that's different. And that's so I guess that's my little tidbit to you. Even if let's say you decide, hey, you know what? I'm gonna start my own thing. Do it and keep going. You're gonna have people tell me you're crazy. Oh, you shouldn't have done that. And then when you're successful at it, because the work was hard in the beginning and everybody called you crazy, nobody saw the dream how you saw it. So, and that's kind of what I'm on right now. I mean, I had to tell a parent that eventually I'm going to move on to college football. I'm not going to say when, but eventually that's my plan and that's my dream. I don't expect that parent to fully understand that, because this parent just wants me to work with her kid, and I will while I'm here. Once I'm gone, I'm gone.
Well, that's the mindset you want for a guy who's coaching your kid. You want somebody who wants to be the best and go somewhere to be the best, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
That's the correct mindset to have, I think. And we were talking about my career path and everything, and everything with my old firm, we worked it all out, but. And we're all fine now. It's just one of those things. It's like when you break up with a girl, it's not good for a while, but then hopefully, you work everything out when you're in your breakup. But I always take this approach with staff and with attorneys that I've worked with, that I always say, if you want to leave where you are because you think somewhere else is better, I will support you 100%. If this place is not where you want to be and you want to go somewhere else that you think is better for your career, I'm going to stand up everything I can to support you, because those people will remember that support years down the line. And when they need something, they will call you as opposed to calling something else. And as a leader in whatever role you're in, be it a head coach or a position coach, an employer, an attorney, your job is to help people advance, right?
Absolutely. Be the best you that you can be.
Exactly. And you want how good of a job you can do with people around you, helping them advance. Maybe it's not with you, maybe it's somewhere else. That actually volumes about you. Like you've talked about this with me. How many guys does Nick Saban have come in and leave and be successful elsewhere?
Yep. I mean, hundreds. It's also, it's kind of like I tell my training group. I've had kids come up to me and ask me, well, I was going to go work out with, we have a guy who's here. He played for the 49ers for a little bit. His name is Dobson Collins. And he runs Triple Threat Sports Training Academy. And I've had kids come up to me and say, hey, you don't mind if we go to Triple Threat? And I'm like, I don't care if you go to Triple Threat and don't come work out with me. As long as you're getting some type of work, I'm satisfied. You know, and I don't know what his situation is over at Triple Threat. Me and him plan to sit down here in a couple months and kind of chop it up. But I don't want to be the supreme leader of training kids. And, you know, that's not my goal. I don't want to be, oh, every kid trains through me, and I got my hand on this kid, that kid. No, if you're willing to wake up at 8:30 on a Saturday and come get better, I salute you for that. Being 17, 18, 19 years old, or 16 years old. You know, I don't care if you go to Triple Threat and don't come work out with me. Did you get your work in? That's what I care about. And so I'm kind of on the same page with you. I'm gonna push people in the direction that they want to go, not in the direction that I want them to go.
And I think that's the absolute correct approach, because, you know, we look at Nick Saban and you say, look at how many coaches he's put into places. That's a strength.
He put my coaching idol into place, Mel Tucker. Mel Tucker was with him at Michigan State in the first go around before he took the LSU job.
Right. Right.
And so I followed Mel Tucker's career literally all throughout the SEC to Colorado to now Michigan State. Like, I followed him very closely. So it's one of those things where, like you said, I want to be a head coach one day. I want my coaches to know, like, I don't want you to just be here and I'm going to try to trap you here. If you have head coaching opportunities, it's because you've done a damn good job here. Go after that. And if I can do anything to help you, I will.
And if you have people who succeed, who worked with you, and then they go elsewhere and succeed, that reflects positively back on you. And I think sometimes people lose sight of that part of it.
Yeah. But I think too, and I'm not speaking against your point because I agree with it, but I'm gonna take it a step further. I just think a lot of people aren't good people anymore. I think a lot of people do things for selfish reasons. You know what I mean? A lot of people do things for advancement, or they'll follow a certain person trying to get a certain gain. And I honestly don't live my life like that. I have before, and I feel like we're all guilty of that. But I honestly, like, I train this training group for free and have for the last 3 years, and I've maybe posted one time about them. Like, I don't put a lot of social media out there about none of that, because literally I just want these kids to want to get better. I want them to fellowship. Kids from Shelby, kids from Crest, kids from the other 2 schools in the county. Call it being a good person, call it being genuine, whatever you want to call it. But I'm not doing this because I feel like, well, you know, then in 5 years they're gonna come back, and when they get to the NFL, they're gonna start paying me. No, because by the time they get to the NFL, I'm hoping to be coaching them. You know what I mean? So I'm not looking at a personal gain or looking at it how it will make me look. I'm just doing this because it's what's on my heart, it's what's on my mind. You know, and it's literally what I love doing.
Well, last thing to talk about, I normally give an open mic, but I think we've covered pretty much we could want to talk about. The last thing I want to ask you about, though, before I let you go, is, because you and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
The social media element of Duke football. I think what they're doing is great. I think they're very engaged. I think it's generating positive buzz. But you know, guys, social media is great and everything, but it doesn't win. It's important. It has a role, as you've talked about. It does not win football games, though. So
it doesn't. I think what they're trying to do, and like you said, it looks everything. I mean, it looks great. Don't get me wrong. we've always had a good video team. That's never lacked. Adam and his crew, those guys were amazing. I mean, I went and sat down with Adam. And I would tell him like, hey, can you find me this play of this game this year in this quarter? And he'd go right to it, no problem. It might have been Virginia Tech 2013. Here we are in 2015, and I just want to see, But so I think what the guys there now are doing is also amazing. But I agree with you. That's not going to win you ball games. It's just going to gain you It's going to gain you fan traction, which is cool. But winning will do that. I feel like we had more people at the Georgia Tech game in 2015 in the rain than I've seen at Wallace Wade in the last 3 years. Duke fans, students, staff, ADs, board members, president. They all used to come to the games. I haven't seen any of them. So that speaks.
Yeah, no, and that's big because I think I like what they're doing with the social media. I think it's a good step. I think it's getting engagement. But what the players need to do is, one, obviously drown out all the crap that we say on social media. Look, I'm one of the few Duke football bloggers that there are, but my opinion really doesn't matter.
Stop taking this crap so personal.
Right. I mean, look, what I say doesn't matter. And guys, just keep that in mind. What I say doesn't matter. Tune out all the noise, tune out all the chatter on social media, and just focus on the football, which I'm sure you guys will do. But, for the fans, it does help to have the social media, but you've got to get a school commitment to the football program to get people back out there and get the butts back in the seats, because the social media will not get people, because it was great last year, but it will get people into the stands. And what you've got to have are athletic directors, assistant athletic directors. You've got to have high-level people at the school on the non-sports side showing up at the games to make a statement to the university and to the students that football is part of the Duke culture, and we expect you guys to be there.
I'm gonna take it a step further. One thing that I regret not being able to do while I was at Duke, besides the Ronald McDonald House, which was still on campus, Duke football, it was a part of Duke's culture, but it needs to become a part of Durham's culture. And I say that we didn't get a chance to go into those communities that a lot of us had parents living in while we were at Duke. We didn't get to go into those communities. We didn't do anything as a team going into those communities, communicate with community organizers and leaders. We never done that. We never done that while I was at Duke. And I think that's one thing that Elko could do to kind of reshape this thing. Because a lot of those who don't know, Durham, as small as it is, has two colleges less than 3 miles away from each other. And that's Duke and that's North Carolina Central. And we'll come together and play a football game against each other, but we won't come together and run a book bag drive for the community. Our leaders won't sit down and talk about how can we create a revenue for Durham? How can we revamp Durham? How can we make Durham a football city? How can we literally have our people in the community from this side of Durham come to a Duke football game and not be hassled or looked at crazy? But how can we have students from Duke go over to North Carolina Central and say, hey, we repping them too? You know what I mean? That right there could change it all. But to do that, you got to get board members, ADs, presidents on board. And I feel like if Elko wanted to do that, he could be the guy to take the first step. It doesn't have, like I said, it doesn't have to be that now we're working out with North Carolina Central or nothing like that. But from a community standard, we should. Those are the two biggest revenue pullers besides the hospital at Duke. Those are the two biggest revenue pullers in Durham. that and the Durham Bulls. So why not?
No.
And that's why I want to be a head coach, because I look further than what the community can do for our program. What can our program do for this community? So.
No, I agree. I think that's great. Well, I think that pretty much covers everything I want to talk about. Anything else you want to discuss? I'll give you an open mic.
Well, I guess I'll go ahead and say this too. Like you said, don't take anything on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram personal. You're going to get tagged. You're going to have people talking. You're going to have fans criticizing. That's what they do. Me being a former player, I do the same thing because I am a fan now. I don't play for Duke anymore. I don't participate in football games or practices anymore. I just help build the culture. So with that being said, you don't want to get into a back and forth on Twitter. I've been there, done that, along with a lot of other guys with a lot of knowledge about this game. We've all been there together and done that. Just win. That's literally all we want to see you guys do, is win. And everything else will take care of itself.
Absolutely. And guys, you know my MO. I'm not going to be critical of the players on Twitter or on social media or on my site. If I do that, call me out and remind me about that, because you guys aren't professionals and I'm not going to hold you to the standard of professional. So if I do that, call me out on it and I'll correct myself. I don't have a problem doing that. I'm been married since 2003 and I got an 8-year-old daughter. So if I haven't learned to admit when I'm wrong by now, I'm never going to do it. But I just want to say, Carlos, thanks a lot for coming back on. We are lining up a couple more interviews. One of our upcoming guests has a great mustache and mullet combo, and I will leave it at that for you guys to figure out who I'm referring to. And we have some other excellent guests that we've got locked in. If you want to come on, you know how to get a hold of me, bullcitycoordinators@gmail.com. My DMs are open. Visit us at our website, bullcitycoordinators.com, and go Duke.